In this, I will aim to answer the question, to what extent did poetry change and vary throughout the 4-year period of World War I? At the very beginning, the nature of poetry, like the vibrant, smiling faces of the lost youth, was idealistic and patriotic. A civilian back home in Old Blighty, we would expect to write a poem that would be mostly very proud about our troops defending the pride and honor of Britain, beating back the Boches. Propaganda is important, after all, in maintaining morale back home, and therefore continuing the war effort. Never mind what is happening to our boys, we all know they're beating back the Hun. If I should die, think only this of me, that there is some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. The Soldier, by Rupert Brooke. A young man who died in Greece on his way to the front in 1915. And yet, despite the tragically confident smile and wave, with the ill-fated and self-assured promise of the war ending by Christmas, our brave soldiers found out only too late that this war would drag on for far too long. As years went by, moods change. War is not the duty of a patriotic man, only a foolish man. The horrors of war ingrain themselves upon the psyche of the soldier's mind, creating widespread cynicism and bitterness towards their reality. And so, to express their sorrow, their anger, and feelings of betrayal toward their commanding officers and their fellow man, they wrote poems of the shocking truth. How trench warfare changed their lives and the lives of all those around them forever. This is the hymn of mud, the obscene, the filthy, the putrid, the vast liquid grave of our armies. It has drowned our men. Its monstrous, distended belly reeks with the undigested dead. Our men have gone into it, sinking slowly, and struggling, and slowly disappearing. The Song of the Mud by Mary Borden, a woman who ran a mobile hospital on the Western Front. This poem was written in the year 1917. Even if a man survived his term in the war, he would be left with so many memories, and the anger, the raw, frustrated anger of seeing, hearing, and feeling the ignorance of a society with the illusions of war created by a monstrous propaganda machine. We must remember, after all, that in war, truth is the first casualty. And no one was more aware of it than these soldiers who had lived through it and wrote about it. Does it matter losing your legs? For people will always be kind. Does it matter losing your sight? There is such splendid work for the blind. Do they matter, those dreams from the pit? You can drink and forget and be glad, and people won't say that you're mad, for they'll know you've fought for your country, and no one will worry a bit. Excerpts from Does It Matter by Siegfried Sassoon. Now, after the war has taken its toll, the public have finally found out how brutal things were, and men like Siegfried were packed off to the hospitals with their files branded as mentally unsuitable for war. Only now are we left with a painful knowledge of these things. We realize that in the long term, it is a tragedy of lost youth and innocence that is the defining theme of our portrayal of the last great war. the so-called war to end all wars. Never such innocence, never before or since, has changed itself to past without a word. The men leaving the gardens tidy, the thousands of marriages lasting a little while longer, never such innocence again. The last stanza of MCMIV, or 1914, by Philip Larkin, written in the year 1960. Poetry has changed throughout the course of the war, depending on where and when it was written. People such as Philip Larkin wrote about the horrors of the war and how terrible it was because he had experienced it firsthand. But others, such as Lawrence Binyon or Rupert Brooke, wrote about the greatness of war upon an undertone of sorrow. The mood of poetry was also clearly transformed from the start to the end of the war, as more and more poets began to write about the very real suffering going on in the world, rather than the superficial suffering of simply pining away furtively for love. We as historians use these common elements of society as reasoning for our arguments, our viewpoints. They are simply sources to us, and we must examine and analyze them if we are ever to answer any of the big questions. What was life like for the common man, or the common soldier, or the nobles and officers of Britain, France, Germany, and Austro-Hungary? Well, maybe at the end of all of this, we'll know.